doing a talk about something. Not sure what yet. So Cyril and I are going to try hard to make sure that what we talk about is not private information or things covered under confidentiality agreements. So there may be times you ask a question and we will not respond or ask you to wait for the formal Q&A period or some other time to ask us those questions, because we'd like to be able to have Eric upload this without a whole lot of editing to try and keep it simple. So we're trying to talk about prime, programming, some of the architecture, things that aren't really private information. So we'll be having me go first, and Cyril will talk more of the details about things that he wants to talk about. And then we'll have a question and answer period. So the goal of that question and answer period is just general questions about crime. Like I said, we may shift some of those till later. So if we don't answer, we'll try and answer that later. Great, looks like it's starting. So what I wanted to talk about today was really a lot of the neat things that are enabled with the capability of using crime in a classroom environment. There's, of course, our primary market for this device is, of course, education. We're very focused on education. Now, that does not mean that this device is going to be a completely useless device for professionals or engineers. We really wanted to do something that would span the whole breadth of what a potential user might want to use. So what I like to do when somebody says, well, it's just a high school calculator. Okay, on our math menu, if you go down here into this special category, okay, so 2 clicks from your main screen, okay, this is not high school math. So it really is designed to be a calculator that can take a person from all the way from a junior high, lower level education all the way through university and professional. So a lot of the things that the CAS will do, the way it acts and behaves is much more akin to the way Mathematica, Maple, those professional type software packages. Now that does have downsides, because there's quirks in those and assumptions that those make about the user and the way they behave, with some things that may not be great for lower level educational uses. But as a general rule, if you're just using this device to do integrals, to do derivatives, to do kind of simple first year calculus type activities, you would never hit these type of irregularities that are the standard in all the professional level packages. So one of the great things about Prime is that it really was designed from the initial conception to allow us to set up and interact in a classroom environment. So there is not built into every single calculator the capability to do communication wirelessly or anything like that. That's very important. We really investigated if it would be possible to build into every unit the capability to connect, but you just can't do that because the testing boards are just so concerned about that capability. So what you have, so these are not yet on the market. They'll be sold in a classroom kit with a base station and then around 30 dongles. Not sure final numbers on things. 30 final number. So you get 30 dongles that plug into the top of the calculator. Unlike the other wireless solutions that are available from TI, for example, this does not use Wi-Fi. It does not use Bluetooth. One of the things we found is that those competing solutions are just so difficult, and there's just so many ways that they can go wrong. The setup time is so painful that they just don't get used. So you pay $2,000 to $3,000 to connect 10 calculators, and you can't get them connected. It takes too long, and they drop off. They work great once they're finally going, but they're just such a pain that teachers who end up buying these very often just discard them. So being in the wireless, in the accessories group within HP, we've got a lot of experience with wireless keyboards and mice. So this is basically the same technology that we're using in the vast majority of our wireless keyboards and mice. So it's very, very simple. You don't have a lot of setup. You don't have to go and configure things and worry about the network causing interference with the IP addresses and all these types of things. So you get those dongles that plug into the top of the device, and then a just little antenna on a cord. And the idea is that we want the teachers to be able to plug this in and start working. You don't have to worry about setup and configuration with Bluetooth. You know, how many of you have had really, really great experiences with Bluetooth mice? You know, they work. Sometimes they work great, but so often it's just constantly it's dropping on and off, and you have to manually go reconnect and do all this type of thing. So we wanted to automate that and really have that fine-tuned control. So that's a mock-up of what the device will look like. Here are the internal boards. I was really hoping to have a full set of 30, so we could actually hand these out and actually do some really great little experiments. So that will be inside that plastic. And so when we connect this to our calculator, so this borrows a lot of kind of similar concepts, borrows the idea of an SSID from Wi-Fi, which everybody's extremely familiar with. So I'll go ahead and show what this looks like. So come in here to the preferences. And you can see down here we have an SSID and a channel. Now this isn't the same traditional channels, 0 through 11, like you'd have with the Wi-Fi, but it really is a large block within that 2.4 gigahertz and then just subdivided, and it automatically scans. So if you have multiple classrooms next to each other, it detects, oh, this channel is occupied, and it moves to a new one. So very, very simple and easy to operate and use. There it is. Okay, so when I plug this in, turn on my devices. So I turned on the calculators. I didn't have to do any configuration. You can already see it's detected those, and they show up. So if you have large sets of classrooms, once it has been connected one time to that network, it remembers it and automatically reconnects. You don't have to worry about manual connections and having it disconnect. It will, if it ever disconnects, it's back on within 5 seconds approximately, and you can do your thing. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the protocol. So this, we've standardized on using HID for prime. And the reason is that we really want to avoid the need to have custom drivers installed on machines. It just makes so much sense to just use the standard HID capability that's built into the operating systems. So we have run into some issues around HID because it's generally not used for really fast data transfer and things like that. But it works, and it works very well. And the fact that you can plug it in on basically any device without worrying about the drivers needing to install makes it very, very simple. So HID at the speed we're running is a 64 byte or octet packet. Now the wireless is 32 bytes. So we actually, each HID packet gets split up to 2 wireless packets. And so the wireless has a simple round-robin procedure, so every device needs to get serviced within a specific amount of time, or it will drop off. So it has a round-robin procedure where it goes through all the devices, sends out a message and says, "Are you still there?" "Yep." And just pings all the way around the circle, make sure the devices are still there. So it can also do broadcast, where it sends out a large blast to every device on the network. So this would be the situation where you're sending out a large data packet. You send it, and then every device will respond back at some point and say, "Yes, I got the data." If the computer does not hear back from a specific device, then it goes to that individual device and resends it to try and make sure that that device received the information. So it also has the concept of being able to put priorities. So for example, when we're in a classroom, okay, we want to be able to monitor. So I'll go ahead and send one of these around. So you can see I'm monitoring this wireless device. So don't spend too long playing with it, but as it's going around, we'll be able to see what's happening on this calculator as people are using it. So a teacher may use this to just monitor and say, okay, is everybody on task? Are they playing a game? Various things like that. So as you push buttons, you'll notice that the screen will be changing. So this is actually using PNG compression in the calculator, a thread in the background that does compression of the screen and is sending the differentials up to the base station. That's very important. You cannot connect two calculators together directly. Okay? That was very, very important. So there's no way you'd be able to take two calculators and send one thing from one device to the other. It all goes through the main base station on the teacher's computer. So as we're monitoring, you'll notice that we have these two devices. So this works. It slows down as you add more and more devices, but we plan to the supported number up to 30 on the same network. The teacher may say, hey, somebody's got something really cool that I want to show. Or maybe the teacher just has their unit and they're walking around and, okay, everybody go into your spreadsheet application and go down here to B4. And so that it allows the teacher to actually display and move around with the students through the room. So you're not tied anymore to the front of the classroom. But maybe the teacher would like to do a large projection of a single unit. So this is where the concept of priorities within the network. You can put a priority on a specific unit, and now we take much more of the bandwidth that's available for this specific unit that I'm working with. So you notice when I'll press the application, and you have that lag. Okay? Now remember, it's doing the screen differentials. If you're on the home screen, I can sit here and type, and you can see it's near real time because it's this small little area of the screen that's working. So we are definitely bandwidth limited compared with what you would get from Wi-Fi, but we believe the usability and the ease of use of this system just really makes up for it. Because you can have all the bandwidth in the world you want, but if you never use it because it just takes too much time to set up and work, what's the point? Yes?
Is it still sending the incremental data from the whole classroom?
Yep. So it's hidden in the background, it's prioritized, so if this device has nothing to send, it will be servicing with other units in the background. So now this allows us to start doing a lot of really, really interesting things in this classroom. So we wanted the ability to do things like send out a message. So you can send out a message to the classroom that says, for example, 10 minutes left in the exam. Or you can say, Johnny, quit playing that game and get back to work. Okay? Or the student can get in and request help. So actually on the menu screen, so on the messages screen, so when you press this menu key, there's get from home, get from CAS, which allow you to move data back and forth between the two areas. There's also this messages area. So the teacher can send out a message, so it's kind of like an instant message chat. Okay, the student can request help and flag for help. So you see I was in that large display and I pressed help and it pops up a selection around this one so the teacher knows, oh, this student needs something. So I can send a message. Okay, and we now have up on the screen, it says what? So I sent a message to that student. Yes?
If a student does something, can that be displayed for the class on the main screen?
Yep, that's what I'm doing right now.
Oh, okay.
So I just double-clicked on one of these calculators so the teacher can project up an individual student or their own machine up to show and say, you know, so-and-so did this great thing and I want everyone to see it. Okay, now this doesn't just support doing displays of things. You can actually send data to the classroom. So a great example of this would be for statistics. I remember back when I was doing statistics courses, a lot of times they would have data and they'd want everyone to have this data set with 45 numbers and everybody takes 5 minutes to go type it in and inevitably somebody missed a number, did something, spend all this time trying to get everybody the same data set. Well, here you can actually create data sets and just send those directly to the class. So I go ahead and mark, add my data set, very, very exciting, and then I can send that to my classroom. Okay, so now those calculators have now received the L1 data.
Where's the L1
There's
data?
something that disconnected, I think.
Did it? Okay, so here's that data. Okay, so as Cyril said, something got disconnected, but it automatically synced back and reconnected up. The idea is that you never have to worry about it. So this is that list that I just created and pushed out to the whole classroom. Okay, so you can, as a teacher, create a lot of really interesting activities where you can push data to the students and they can work on it. Okay? However, you also have the capability to do interactivity with the students. So you can push out little quizzes and exams. So you can send out questions at the start of a class and do a short little 3-question quiz about some topic, or during the middle of the class, you can create a little quiz and push that out to the students. And the point there is that you want to be able to understand if the students are understanding the lesson. Maybe you send out a question and 80% of the class answers correctly, and there's 20% that answers the same exact way, but wrong. Okay, so as a teacher, you say, oh, well, wait a minute. Okay, so one of you that answered C, okay, what were you thinking, and why did C seem like the correct choice? Okay, and then maybe there's this large group of people that have misunderstood a concept, but they're all misunderstanding it in the same way. Okay, so as a teacher, you can correct there and really help everybody understand what's happening and going on. So we have the ability in here to go in and create polls and quizzes. Okay, so you can create exams. And in this exam, you have a lot of different choices and options of things you might want to ask. So we can select that this can have an immediate pop-up. So whatever the students are doing, it will pop up in the middle. We can flag that, oh, we really only want them to be able to send a response one time. You can disable the ability to back up. So you can have 10 questions in your quiz, for example, and you don't want them to be able to go back to number 1 when they get to number 5. Okay, so you can select, is it a multiple choice? Is it A, B, C, D, E, yes, no, true, false? A Likert scale, so agree, neutral, disagree. How confident are you? Always, sometimes, never. These are all different types of questions a teacher might want to work on and do. You can ask for a specific number. Okay, so you can send out a question in a statistics class. You can say, how many items are in your pocket? And you send it to everybody, they count all the items in your pocket, and they send back a number. You know, that number can be automatically aggregated through the classroom, and you get sets of data. So you can start building really interesting data sets very, very quickly using this system. You can ask for people to select and return a specific point. So you can put up a graph and ask the students to pick a random point somewhere along this line, and they return that coordinate. And then you can see patterns in the ways people have responded. You can ask for text. There's a lot of different things that you can do here. So I can create this little quiz. And we'll have multiple choice, A, B, C, D, E. And where's my number? I hate small screens. All right, now I can.
So while you're doing that, Tim, I'll take a moment to mention a couple things. So a couple things Tim talked about already that I wanted to point out. So he had shown you the mock-up of the wireless adapter. It shows as white here, but actually it'll be bright orange so that teachers know when it's in use and when it's not, because that's a pretty important thing to have. In addition, though, I wanted to point out that another benefit of what Tim's showing right now is that all this content can be created before your class. So if you have, like, say you're teaching, I don't know, Algebra 1, and you always use the exact same problem sets, you can define these questions and answers all one time, and reuse them again and again and again, regardless of where you are. You can share them with your colleagues. So the best practice sharing is really critical here too. So it allows you to reuse the data sets or whatever it is you happen to like most. So those are some of the benefits here, and I think probably Tim will talk about it. You going to talk about applications as well?
Yep.
Okay, then I'll leave him to that.
Anything you can do with this connectivity kit, any editing, any programs, any creation of applications can be done wirelessly. So it's not limited to just sending out, quizzes and things like that. So here's this quiz that I just push to my device, and I get my test, and I can select. And yes. Okay, so then I send that, and I'm now done. Okay, so when those example results come in from a full classroom, who sent me a message? Fess up.
Is it say help or hello?
Hello.
Help me.
Hello world.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so this connectivity kit actually has a full under the hood calculator running inside of it. So once we've gotten this data, you now have the ability to come in and start analyzing this data with the students. So we have the ability to display these results using the same graphing options that you have available in the calculator. So you can, as a teacher, move through the various questions, display them in different forms, and if you decide, hey, I really want the students to be able to experiment with this data themselves, with a single click, you send this data back to the class. And now all the students have that data that we were just looking at. Okay, so you can see how this type of thing can do a lot to enable that interactivity in the classroom environment and start being able to do a lot of really neat things that would normally take a long amount of time to do, and really automate it and make it very, very simple. So,
Can I make 2 more marketing comments?
yes.
Okay, great. So, sorry, just to make a couple more marketing comments here. One is that the wireless technology that's on this device from our competitors retails for about $2,000 to $3,000, and this will retail for about $600 in total. And so that's one piece of it. Oh, thank you very much. Sorry. Hey, how you doing? The other piece I wanted to mention is that a lot of the functionality, like the polling that Tim's showing right now, is sold as a separate functionality as well in classrooms. So the ability to use clickers in a classroom also sells for a couple $1,000s in its own right. So it's really 2 solutions kind of bundled together that make this really compelling for an educator in the marketplace today. So just wanted to let you know that's sort of the parallel with regards to cost and price for the teacher. Please.
So maybe there's a whole session for this, and if so, just say so and we'll stop. Is the targeted market for this a school system, like
Yeah.
at the town level or something like that?
Yeah, I'll
Because-
repeat the question just for the
I'll leave
folks
the
on
calculator
the
back
video.
for a second.
The question was, is the target for this a school system, or is it for, I'm sorry, what was the other?
Well, obviously individual students, no.
Right,
Or
so yeah.
a teacher, probably not. So it's school system
Yeah,
sales,
it's definitely
right?
targeted at a school system. That's why we made it 30 wireless connectors in there, because we're assuming classroom size is 20 to 30 students, so it gives you a couple extras perhaps. I know, perhaps it's, somebody's chuckling, could be up to 40 or 50, I don't know. Richard.
Deb mentioned, 2 systems maybe in one big school. Would it be possible that one system is being used in a classroom, and then the other system is being used by the janitor, say, and he's sitting there monitoring the exam that's going, and he's making a little money on the
The
side?
janitors.
Yeah, purview, but, so I think, let me repeat the question really quickly. So Richard is asking about janitors. He was asking about whether or not in a given school, 2 of these systems might be used next to one another, and if, I presume you're saying if one person could see into the classroom of the other person next door. I'll let Tim answer that, because he's more technical than I.
So you can set up multiple networks. By default, we have it set so that our space that we have available, you can have up to, I believe, 20 networks before you start having any sort of overlap. So if needed, we can definitely expand that by just bringing them slightly closer together, but we figure if we're having schools that are having 20 full networks of these things, that's a great problem to have, and we'll be happy to work with them at that point. So I'd like to show 1 or 2 more things, and then I'll open it up for questions. So the other big thing, of course, with Prime is the concern about being able to restrict functionality during exams. Now, what we really wanted to do, HP has always been about flexibility and the ability to work how you want rather than trying to shoehorn things into general solutions. And so when we implemented an exam mode, we wanted to give the teacher or the exam administrator the ability to do what they want. Not just say, okay, these are these 5 or 6 broad categories of things that we're going to allow you to disable. So you can actually get down to the point where you're disabling individual functions on the calculator itself. So you can, if you're in a class and you're learning about matrices and vectors, you want to do a 10-minute quiz at the start of class about dot products and cross products. You can disable those 2 functions individually and selectively on the device. A big part of that ability, a big part of what we envisioned this wireless communication with is the ability to administer exam modes and restrict functionality. Okay, so when an exam configuration is set up, you can give it a password, you give it a duration, you can set a default angle so everybody's set in radians at the start so you can avoid the problem of, oh, I forgot and I was in degrees. And I now as a teacher have to go through and check everything and see if this, so we tried to make it as simple and easy as possible. So once we have that exam configuration, so I went ahead and sent this now to the classroom. There's 3 lights on here, so that configuration, as well as other parts of the thing, get run through a cryptographic algorithm, and it generates a random sequence of lights. So this random sequence of lights, the intent here is that every device in the room should be blinking in the same pattern. Okay, so if you're looking out there and there's a blue and a green light, and one unit has a red and a green, as a teacher, something has happened with that device, and that student maybe has been messing with it or has a program installed to change some things, re-enable stuff. The intent is that you can very easily spot that somebody has done something. In addition, there's the, in the monitoring,
Does this require the dongle to be plugged into the calculator? Or?
So the question is, does it require the dongle to be plugged in? So exam mode can be configured via cable to the PC, or from device to device, or like via cable or wirelessly.
Oh, wireless.
It's a lot easier to do 30 of them though wirelessly.
Yeah. So
Okay.
once the student has left the classroom or is out of range, does the calculator go back to normal? Or
so there's several ways that the exam mode can be disabled. So one, you can have a password, so the student will go in, at the end you can publish the password, and you can see up on this guy. So I've gone into this wireless Calc 1 here, and I go to the home settings screen, and then I go down 3 to where the exam mode configuration is, and there's a password. So a student could type in your password. Or there's the time. So I set this one for 15 minutes. So after 15 minutes, this is automatically going to be disabled. The way the TI solution works, you have to plug one calculator into another. And if nobody wants to plug in a calculator with you, which happens at schools, everybody refuses to connect, your calculator's stuck that way. So,
well, yeah, if you disable a calculator for 50 minutes, or is that actually set in the calculator, or is it set in the, the transmitter?
It's set in the calculator. It survives a complete format. It survives complete flashing of the OS. It survives basically anything you can do, swapping out the battery, pulling it out. Anything we can possibly think of, we've tested to make sure that you can't get this out of exam mode.
So if a teacher accidentally set it for a day or something, and then the student went home at night and found this calculator wouldn't
You are
work,
shucks out of luck.
I mean, it's possible for that to happen, in other words.
You could replace the flash.
You would replace the flash.
Okay.
So, now,
So it is, you really
No,
is
if you-
permanently, sort of
Well, yeah,
disabling the calculator.
Quasi-permanently.
Quasi-permanently, yeah.
That's the goal. We want it to be simple and easy to use, but robust. It's recognized it will never be 100% secure. TI may try and convince people otherwise, but there's plenty of hacks available for their exam stuff. What it does is it really gives you, however, a way you can do quick things in a classroom and have a much higher level of security than you would before. You know, people, if they are going to cheat, they will always find a way. Cheaters are very, very creative. If they just spent that time actually studying,
Learning the curve.
that'll happen. So I'll go ahead and open it up now for questions. So the entire point of these LCDs really is about that exam security. The LEDs, sorry, not.
What's the longest time they could
Hey,
disable?
not you yet. Raising hands.
5 years.
If you made a mistake and you were going to go for disable for 1 hour, and you actually done 1 day by mistake, how would you get it?
So the teacher can send out again and stop any exam from the wireless network or with a USB. So the same device that set it into an exam can be used to unset it. But I can't use somebody else's connectivity kit on a PC to unset it. So it is tied like that. You can send from one unit to another unit. So a teacher can have their unit, they set it all up exactly how they want. You plug in the 2 cables and hit send, and then it sets that other device into the exam mode. So it's very, very flexible. It can be done on the unit itself directly. It can be done from another unit. It can be done from a USB cable on the PC. It can be done at one shot over the network. So I'll go ahead
And you cannot say, I want to have the exam mode running for
Forever.
25 days.
Right.
Yeah,
That's completely
it's limited to 1 day maximum. So I'm going to go ahead and hit stop,
Students have to be.
and it will send out and stop
Very fast.
our exam for the whole system. And you can see that slight delay as we flip it. So,
Will it be available for Macintoshes?
so the connectivity kit is built in Qt. Right now there is only a Windows version. We'll have to evaluate what market needs are required to determine our resource allocation. Did I get that right,
That's a great
Jason?
answer. But
So-
it's been noted, so I will take it down as a request.
The goal is that, we built it in
OS2?
Qt with the desire that it would be portable to any
Linux.
system. Okay.
Okay, I got a question. You were talking about how this might be used in the classroom, and one way is dynamically, as you were talking about. The other company, who we will not name, has a way that you can build courseware where the teacher pre-prepares sequences of screens, text, tables, graphs that are all interlinked and constitute a self-directed study that a student could use. Is your platform going to be set up to also do that?
So the way that the Prime is designed is around the concept of applications. So the TI Inspire is designed around the concept of documents, where every document has various objects that get added in there. So at this point, we do not have a specific way or plan to set up these pre-run studies in the same exact format as the TI Inspire. The way we envision this happening is through our applications. The teacher can save an application. It has associated with it programs and notes. You can set up views, and the students can walk through these applications to learn concepts. We are investigating similar type things to be able to link multiple applications and things like that, but we don't have any firm plans to share at this point.
Okay, I think this is a follow-up to what Richard was trying to ask. If you're using this in a classroom for an exam, let's say, can someone in the next classroom with the connectivity kit eavesdrop in on it, get the questions,
Yes.
and then maybe give it to someone else for tomorrow?
Okay, so no, you can only connect to one base station. You cannot connect to multiple systems at a time. Now, if that student is savvy enough that they can set up something to intercept 2.4 gigahertz wireless and are able to write something that will connect up I don't think they need that exam, to be honest. But yes, like we said, we understand completely there's no possible way you will ever be able to stop really, really determined cheaters. But once it gets above a certain level, you really don't have to worry about it. And technical solutions for everything just are not possible. It's to aid rather than replace. Okay, I think right up here, Cyril, can you do him? He was up very, very right there. And then we'll come back to you, Bill. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. He had his hand up very first. And
Yeah, I know. I'm
he
trying
was
to go
starting
from
to
the back
look
to
a little
the
sad. He's getting puppy looks. So.
Yeah.
Just along those same lines, I just was curious whether you have an encryption technology that's building the wireless connections.
So currently we do not have AES enabled. It's supported in the chip. We just did not see a real need for it. But it is definitely supported, and we could easily flip a switch and turn that on, and the entire connection through the air would be encrypted from end to end.
First feedback, I'm blown away with the amount of functionality you have in this app or this solution, but I guess my question is 1 month with Tim included with each purchase? Because I think, I'm not in the market, but my wife's a high school teacher, so I know a lot of the reality of it from a feet on the ground sort of thing. And I think one of the obstacles, and I'm not trying to preach to the choir, but one of the obstacles is teachers who don't want to use new things because, how much time, there's plenty here to do, but how do you motivate them? What's the right way? I mean, certainly you can open eyes with what you can do, that things that can't be done, but how is HP addressing that?
It is definitely a large problem, the whole concept of we need to train the educators in the technology. The best solution really is to keep it as simple as possible, that anybody who is motivated slightly can use it and can learn it. Now, if all you ever do with this is nothing but sending out an exam, okay, you're getting use out of it. You don't have to dig into the ability to, I'm going to program a new application. We are planning to work heavily on taking feedback and improving the user interface of the software, making it as simple and as direct as possible. But a big part of that is just getting the technical solution at a low level in, so that all you need to do is plug it in. That's the goal.
Can I add a little bit to that? So in researching, I'll just speak loud so Tim's mic picks it up. So in researching this a bit, lean on in. Thank you very much. So in researching wireless, there's a lot of interesting first-party research out there, and our friends at TI actually have done quite a bit of homework as well, and have posted it nicely for us to read. So one of the papers they've actually posted is around technology in the classroom, and one of the assertions that it makes is that you can put technology in a classroom, but unless you teach the teachers how to use it, and unless it benefits them in their teaching abilities, it won't do any good. And so that's been a very common theme with a lot of technology in the classroom. What I wanted to mention is that in some ways, it's been very beneficial that TI has done such hard work to convince teachers that they need to have wireless technology in the classroom. And so while this may seem like a challenge in some ways, the teachers are already convinced of the benefits of that technology in the classroom and want that. So really half the battle's already been won by our competition in some ways to help us get in the classroom and help teachers. So really what's left to us is really just helping them understand how to use this specific technology as opposed to a different one. So thank you, TI.
I'm sure I'm missing quite a bit here, but are you asking students to pay for machines that they then don't have complete control over?
No, and that is a point of view. So the question is around the student paying. Do you have an add on there or clarification? Okay, well, I saw you took the mic back. Wasn't sure if you had something else to say before I started. So yes, that is a point of view that that the student does not have complete control over this machine. That is one way to look at this.
When you put the
wireless attachment, yeah.
When you put the wireless in, normally no, there is not those restrictions. But the capability to restrict the functionality optionally during an exam actually can open up this device to be used in places it would otherwise not be able to.
Just like
For
buying
example,
it.
if it is a non-CAS exam and the CAS board feels comfortable that our exam mode is secure enough that they don't need to worry about it, they know that as long as that device has had the CAS restricted, they're comfortable with now using that device, whereas before it would be completely banned. So in many ways, it actually can act as an enabler in places that previously it would be disallowed.
It'd be sort of like buying a textbook that you can't bring to exams. You know, you can use it everywhere else.
I would say more the answer key, but you can bring the textbook
or some
in.
some piece of something
some
that you
some
can't
piece like that.
use
Very good
everywhere.
question. Do you have a follow-up?
Yes. If the teacher on the way to class is hit by a truck, what happens to all these calculators the students have paid for?
So they time out at a specific value. There's also the password that's been put in, and it does not run past midnight. Okay, at midnight everything turns into a pumpkin and is reverted back. So we specifically wanted to make sure that one student could not reach over and take something out of a bag and lock it for 3 weeks, and things like that. So we've thought about from the student perspective as well as the administrators and the exam board, and really tried to strike a balance. Okay.
No, the time is disabled also as soon as when it comes.
Yep, so the time is disabled. You can't get in and mess with the time. We've thought of everything we can possibly do. Now, this does mean that we have to be very careful in opening up the device for user programming. Because people are very, very capable. We don't want that it'd be absolutely trivial to get in and bypass this exam configuration. It's not that we do not want to do that. I have heard no one within the calculator group say that we want to try and go the route of the TI with the Inspire, where they're encrypting everything end-to-end in the device. The firmware is encrypted. The user language does not have the ability to ask, is a key down? Because if you have that, you can then start making a game, and so they don't allow it. Okay? There's not any of that idea within HP. We want to open up the system and hardware as much as possible. We just need to be careful how we do it. And a plea for the first group of people that does hack this device, we just ask that you make it maybe not 900% open. Just go 99%, make it so it's not trivial to break the exam stuff. You get everything you want, you get access to the file system, writing stuff, but just make it so that it's not super easy for a high schooler who doesn't know anything about programming to get in and break the exam. Because if you do that, it really makes it so this device has trouble in the market with the exam boards. So just a plea there.
You showed you showed how the students can see the teacher's screen, but it's very useful for them to be able to see how the teacher is entering data. So I think my question is whether this software interacts with the teacher's emulator.
Yep.
Okay, great.
So when I start up the emulator up here, so it just comes in, there's Tim's emulator. So it's designed to seamlessly work with a USB device, a wireless device, an emulator, basically any source, it treats it the same. Okay.
Tim, like TI has worked with probes in the science classes and in the math classes, they use it as more of a programming tool. What you need to do is you need to go to the science conferences, National Biology Teachers Conferences, the chemistry conferences, physics conferences, and have workshops for the teachers to learn how to do it. And as they come on, maybe give them a calculator. Teachers are always looking for free things because, quite frankly, education budgets are terrible. Most science classes now are 40 kids to a classroom. which is terrible. I mean,
Please.
it's dangerous if you're teaching chemistry because
Hey.
you don't have any aides and it's just you in the classroom that's watching them. So, but you really need to get into the conferences. You need to have workshops regionally within a state to help and to draw teachers to these conferences and push what you're doing. It's really important.
We agree 100%. We really are trying to focus efforts as best we can. So it is hard within a large corporation like HP, where calculators is such a small thing to get the interest and the funding. One of the things that we have now within the calculator group is something called Classroom Manager. That is something that's enabling us to open doors in a lot of places we could not before. So Classroom Manager is a PC monitoring, restricting classroom tool. It's designed to allow teachers to control what's going on in a classroom full of PCs and eventually various tablet operating systems and things like that, to be able to do the same type of thing, being able to send out quizzes and polls, being able to turn off the printer so people don't print 2,000 pages, being able to listen in on what the student's doing with the microphone, being able to see what's going on, turn off the internet, bring up a program. So really, the calculator group is working on these entire solutions, being able to go to school, present hardware, tablets, classroom monitoring environments, calculators, series of probes and connectivity with the StreamSmart system and the Fourier. We're investigating all sorts of options of what we need to do to succeed.
One more comment. You were saying that scientific education budgets are terrible. I think you can remove 2 words out of that sentence. Budgets are terrible.
Just wanted to say to Laura, I've attended such a teachers' meeting a year ago for the 39 GS2. It was held in London. There's a teacher enthusiast there who organises these. Cyril came from France. GT came over from the US. There were teachers there who were excited. Part of it was about the maths, and then the afternoon was about the probes and so on. It's wonderful, but we need the teachers or someone in a given area to actually organise it for HP. HP haven't got the staff to go, but if there's a teacher who gets a group of other teachers and goes to HP, they will come. I can assure you, because I've been at one of these. Thank you.
Cyril? After...
Perhaps you already answered this question, so I don't know if I'm asking a duplicate here, but when you, can you directly program the lights on the side anywhere? Can you get to those lights?
No. And the entire point of doing it with a cryptographically random sequence is, even if you could, the idea is that you can't predict what's going to be happening. So,
is it possible that if somebody hacks those lights or is able to access those lights, that you could, say, make a little program and then say if the red and the green light were on, and you would just type in, okay, red and green are on, and swap your calculator with one in your bag.
So every 10 seconds you'd have to be doing that, because it's a 10-second duty cycle. That random sequence,
the sequence
changes.
The sequence changes. I'm sorry, I missed that part. Okay, that's the part I missed. Thank you.
Pseudo-random. Thank you. No, it changes constantly every 10 seconds.
Okay. I'm keeping you for last because I know how you ask questions.
Okay, Tim. Now, we've got the calculator, we've got the dongle. That's the user side. What do you need on the teacher side?
I need you to write a bunch of good programs for HP Prime.
No, I mean hardware.
You need an antenna?
To do a song
So,
on the Dog and Pony Show.
From the teacher side, you have a wire with an antenna.
And that's pretty much it.
So that's all the hardware.
And
It's
the
not a
software.
router, you don't have to plug it into a network, you don't configure things.
Yeah.
And then the connectivity kit software, which comes with every unit.
Right.
It's not a special download, it's not something you pay for. It's just part of the standard connectivity that comes with every unit.
And it allows Windows?
It runs on Windows currently, it's written in Qt, so we're investigating as needed other platforms.
What's the distance?
So the distance on this, so testing in an extremely noisy 2.4 gigahertz environment, like the office downstairs, going through all those cubicles. It's about 40 meters. Direct line of sight about 60. So definitely large enough for large classroom environments.
Our goal was about 15.
So our goal is 15 to 20, and it's far beyond that.
How are we doing on time? How are we doing on time?
Oh, doing plenty of time. Question.
Richard would like to ask a question, though.
Yeah,
Still.
don't forget to ask it. Oh, I know. He had his head from the beginning. That's why I was starting from the back.
Okay, I got an observation and a question. The observation is, you're talking about the control of PCs in a classroom. I know for a fact in large school systems that will not work. The way they do it is they lock down all the computers, including the teachers. They can't install software, they can't have classroom-specific stuff. So you need to watch out for that, number one. The question is, why don't you just create a whole mess of YouTube videos, how to do this, how to create a data set and send it out to the kids, how to do a simple quiz, and let them teach themselves.
So the first
We are
part,
looking for a sexy person to do that.
what are you saying, sir?
And that's not me either.
So we hear you about that. This solution isn't yet on the market, and we're still investigating what to do to best support the training and getting the message out there. In all honesty, this type of classroom network has left a really bad taste in a lot of educators' mouths with the calculators, because they've had such bad experiences. We really want to educate them on that, and we're investigating what we need to do there. So yes, and we do know the issue with the classroom software. This isn't something that is generally purchased by an individual teacher, but it's more administered by the IT in the school. They set it up on all the systems through virtual environments and all sorts of things. So
Yeah,
it's a very, very big project.
I can speak a little bit more to that, actually. So there is an administrative console as well for HP Classroom Manager, so it allows for the school IT administrator to administer all their PCs. So it controls a lot more than just a classroom. It controls things like printer management, firmware updates, software updates. So really it's meant to do what you're saying, essentially. It's a solution to do that, and in addition then it benefits a teacher in allowing them to formatively assess, do control of their classroom, lock things down, open things up, and direct study to make sure people are doing what they want.
It's just going to be a major change to their infrastructure.
Right. Totally understand that. Yeah, absolutely appreciate that. Yeah, and but the good news for us is that being a small calculator team, we didn't always have access to the sales force that we have today for education sell-in, and so it's actually really beneficial for us because it allows our commercial sales force who's tied into education and ministries of education to get in places we otherwise wouldn't. So it's a big step in the right direction for us.
One other thing also is the connectivity kit will run out of a USB stick. Does not require driver install or anything. So you can take your USB stick, put it in a computer, run it. If you've got a laptop, I mean, you've seen it's not a heavy infrastructure, it's just a little antenna. You bring your laptop, you're set up. So go ahead, and then I'm getting to you, Richard. Promise.
2 questions. First of all, have you thought of taking the system and allowing a link of 2 systems to take you past that 30 connection link for the larger classrooms like the science classrooms?
So 30 is the number that we are publishing. We honestly do not know what the maximum is. It should be able to handle up to at least 255 and was designed from the start to allow multiple antennas on the same network to be linked together to do more. But 30 is a good number, and like I said, if we have classrooms with hundreds, that's a great problem to have.
Okay, second question, I think you may have answered this already. Can the instructor tell how many are linked to through the system?
Yep.
And which ones?
Yes. Okay, Richard. Anyone else?
Now's the time.
I guess this is a Jason question. We've heard that HP from Upon High is making a commitment into education. And so when you release a product like this, I guess over the years, HP's had a lot of programs, a lot of things, and not all of them have bloomed. They planted them, but they didn't bloom. So in this particular case, when you do announce this, will there be a commitment? For example, Tim has said they've looked at let's use the word hacking. There's somebody hacking the system. That if you make a commitment and they have these systems out there and some clever, big brother of a student, they work together and they hack the system, they say, oh yeah, that was pretty clever, that you would be committed to patch it in order to keep it used. And see, that's a commitment that you have.
Can I have your mic?
So my press training has told me that I can make no future-looking statements, and so that's what I'm going to avoid saying right now. However, we have a vested interest in, if we want to have certification on things like AP Calculus or SAT, in having the most robust security we can possibly manage. And so I'm very confident that our current implementation is well beyond our competition with regard to robustness of solution, and our goal is to continue to make it so. So without making any future-looking statements, that would be my point.
Should we as a group volunteer?
I'll repeat his question.
Should we as a group volunteer to hack to test it for you?
Should we as a group volunteer to hack it for us?
Yeah.
I don't want to issue a challenge or throw down a gauntlet or anything. However, no, I really am interested in making it as robust as possible, so I think it is really useful. I mean, if there's anyone in the world that's capable, this room is certainly it. And I appreciate any insights you all might provide to us as far as things you feel are shortcomings or challenges that we may face or have already. We welcome your feedback, and it certainly goes a long way to helping us make a better product.
So, as we are saying, we are trying to do everything we can to make the system robust and safe. If you spend time trying to hack into it and you do succeed, what it means is that HP is going to have to fix your hack. And HP in this case means Tim and myself. So if you ever want to get your tetrahedron solver, please give us time to do that instead of having to burden us with trying to fix your, the flaws you might find in the system.
I mention this because some years ago, and everybody in this room will relate to this, Hewlett-Packard introduced a new product. It was called the HP41, and it wasn't a calculator, it was a system, and it truly was a great system. And part of that was that it was a programmable calculator that had what was called a private mode for your programs.
Okay.
Now, as a group, we blew private away very quickly.
Right.
But as a group, it was my policy never to publish how to break private.
Right.
And in fact, it was in Washington, D.C., now Jake may remember the year, a number of the conference participants had a meeting with HP engineers, and it was one of the conditions of that meeting was, we will divulge all methods that we've developed but not published on how to break private so you can better protect it.
Sure.
And HP was interested in doing that because they had future machines that they were thinking of implementing that feature.
Yeah,
unfortunately, it didn't happen.
I see. Well, I can answer that real quickly, I suppose, if you don't mind. So a couple things. I don't know, I mean, don't get me wrong, I trust everybody in the room, but I would argue that the state of things now compared to when the 41 came out is a bit different with regards to information interchange. Like, the internet's a lot more accessible now than it was to a lot more people. But I think it's important that we continue to understand when things aren't working the way we expect them to and work to resolve those things. Continue to make this system effective because it's crucial to our calculator success, because the instant it ceases to be useful on exams is the instant it ceases to be useful for the students for whom we're making it. And so it's imperative that we continue to make it a robust and secure system. So I'd love to hear more. Got my business cards up here, so please let me know as we go forward. But I have great confidence in Tim and Cyril's implementation of this as well, and I think it's a really robust system to begin with. And again, not a gauntlet, nothing thrown down here. Just saying, I think it's a very strong system as it is.
Yeah, because one of the interesting things that came out of that was that maybe there were 5 different systems of breaking. One of them was so simple that no no human being could possibly have thought about. And it's just a quirk in the way things work, because they're so complicated that the simplest little thing that somebody finds in the dead of night, half asleep, and those are the ones that that kill you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we've still got one or two more here. Maybe three.
I think the interactive capability opens up a whole new paradigm. Really good advantages. A negative possibility is kids that have test taking anxiety. It could be even amplified. It's almost like a teacher standing over your shoulder taking a test. So that's the only downside I see. But maybe TI's done studies on that.
Do you mean the monitoring aspects? Or
Yeah.
I mean, so just to be fair, let me clarify really quickly. So the exam mode does not necessarily imply that we're going to monitor you as a student. So as a teacher, if you were concerned about that, you could simply configure everyone's calculator at the beginning of class and then have them unplug the wireless dongle once it's in exam mode. So there's no need to oversee the classroom. It's not like, what is it, Pink Floyd, right? It's sort of the kids with their heads down on the desk, everyone watching over them. It's certainly not intended for that purpose. It's really a lot more for sharing. So yeah, so from that perspective, you can take monitoring away. And your student has that choice as well, right? They can just take the dongle out and there's no more wireless.
Okay. Roger?
Cyril, you may be covering this in your presentation, but can the Prime be upgraded, reflashed with the new program? Okay, yeah, we'll cover that. Just one more comment about college students and high school students. They've got a lot of time on their hands. They love to hack things because it's a challenge. And so just past historical.
Yeah, no, completely understand.
Like I said, we know that people are very smart and will be able to hack the system. We have not gone the route of encrypting the entire firmware and things like that. We're not trying to actively fight against people. We really aren't. We'd like to do as much as possible to make it programmable and be a great system to work on. And so we do look at that as a way that we sell a lot of units. We do, however, have this kind of conflict with the exam stuff, and we'd like to keep that as secure as possible. So we just have to be careful at how we do things. So if it's not available right this second, it does not mean that it will never be there. We just have to be careful to make sure we don't completely eliminate things that we consider important for sales. Jim?
I'd like to take the liberty of speaking for some of my former colleagues at Hewlett-Packard in the calculator business, where there was a tremendous passion for collaborative learning and some projects that you guys know darn good and well didn't come to market, but we tried. The Anansi project was certainly one of those. But I have to say that I truly wish that some of those guys, Max Jones, Charlie Patton, Diana Byrne, could be here to see this presentation. You guys, in my opinion, have hit a home run with this classroom architecture. And I really believe that you deserve a round of applause for hitting the home run that we dreamed of in Corvallis years ago. You've done it, and it's elegant and it's beautiful, and it justifies my coming here to see the fruition of that vision. So I think you deserve a great round of congratulations on the mission.
Are there any more questions before we move into Cyril's part? So Cyril, I believe, is talking more technical, architectural things, making it up as he goes along. Then I believe the schedule says we'll have lunch and then a question and answer
No, we
period.
have one other thing. We have to take a group photo before.
Group photo and then lunch, and then we'll have another question answer period with about Prime. So
The election of somebody else said reminded me of this, but where I taught and retired from, every once in a while I get students who were in some way disabled, and all exams had to be taken at the Disabled Student Center, the DSS. And usually it was something like they wanted a quiet area or where they needed more time, maybe unlimited time, and things like that. And the exams had to be taken there beforehand. And I guess this could be adapted by, I guess the teacher could adjust the time on that particular student's calculator, couldn't they? Absolutely. And then give the student fix the student's quote, fix unquote, the student's calculator just before, I guess he'd have to come to the teacher. You'd have to change the system a little bit, but I guess it would be, sound like it'd be
Adaptable,
workable, yeah. But that's something to think about.
And one final thing, so we do definitely recognize that there are mixed environments where there's multiple calculators of different companies and things like that. It's not a requirement that we have those lights blinking. So they can, if you do not have the lights blinking, it just puts on a solid color, and some teachers are perfectly acceptable with that. So we, again, give that choice to the educators rather than just, here's these 5 or 6 buckets of things you can disable. So it's all about the flexibility and the simplicity.